Hi, this is Mark Pritchard, and I'd like to take you through the steps to create a WebLogic server domain using JRockit Virtual Edition on the Oracle VM hypervisor. What I've done here is to install the WSVE package onto my development machine, and then I've created three directories here because I'm going to create three virtual machines, one for my admin server and one for each of the two managed servers that are in the domain. And I've copied the system.img and the vm.cfg from the base image that's supplied with that package. I've copied that into each of those three directories, and then I'm going to insert the domain information that I've configured, and I'm also going to supply the JRVE configuration information for each of the three servers. So let's have a quick look at the domain that I've created here. So let me just take the focus. There we are. And I created this using Configuration Wizard, using a standard WebLogic 10.3.2 installation with the WebLogic server JRVE patches applied. So those extra classes will be added to the extension class path of the domain by default. So fairly standard domain. We have an admin server and two managed servers. Notice that I've set native IO enable to false. Obviously we're not running with a guest operating system. We don't have the native IO libraries. I've also included a startup class which I configured to use the WebLogic WSVE SSH server SSH startup class. Again, that's one of the patch jars that gets loaded from the extension class path. And the reason for that is that we need to integrate the JRockit VE SSHD service with our domain security realm, the WebLogic security realm. So that is the class that lets us do that, and I'll show you how that works later on. And then I've created a user and so on in the LDAP, the embedded LDAP server. So that's my WebLogic server domain configuration, and I'm going to insert that into the virtual machine images for each of those three servers. Each of those servers also has a JRockit VE configuration associated with it. Let's just have a quick look at that. And we'll look at the admin server first. And here you can see this is where we configure the JRockit VE services. There's the SSH daemon, which we're going to use for file access to, for example, the log files and things like that. Here's the virtual disk. And I've also included an NFS mount here. I created that folder /application/NFS, and I'm going to mount this directory from my hosted development box. So I can use that for deploying applications, for example, up to the admin server to be pushed out to the other servers in the domain. This is the virtual machine name. I'm using the convention of domain _ server name. This is my domain home directory. I've created that, and I'm now that folder application domains, and we're going to run some commands in a minute to insert that entire domain directory into the virtual machine image. Here's the JVM startup arguments, and you can see here that we're using the admin server. This is the domain name, and I also pass in the username and password using the WebLogic management flags, because of course we can't do that interactively first time startup. We can use boot properties and so on in pretty much the normal way subsequently, but we have to do that for the first time up. Here are the network parameters, and I've got fixed IP addresses here, and I've got the name that I'm using for the admin server is going to be mpritchard VM1, and you can see all the details of DNS and so on there. So let's just have a look at one of the managed servers. Again, it's very similar. I'm not using the NFS mount because I'm going to deploy things through the admin server if I want to. Notice here I've had to add in the WebLogic Management Server flag so that we give the IP address and port of the admin server so that we can refresh our configuration. This is just standard WebLogic, of course. And we have the network information here, and it's just slightly different. I'm using mPritchar VM2 with that IP address, and I've used the Python scripts that are available with OVM just to generate an appropriate random MAC, and I have a different one for each of the 3 virtual machines that I'm using. So that's my setup. What I'm going to do is I've got a number of commands that I'm going to run. Essentially, for each of the virtual machines, I have to insert the WebLogic domain information. I'm going to do that with a recursive put using WSVE image tool, and then I have to do a set config with the appropriate XML JRVE configuration file. And I'm going to do that for each of the 3 virtual machine images here. So what I'm going to do is I've got that, and I'm just going to paste that in here, and we'll see the commands running one after another. So here we are, we're running the WSVE image tool, and we're using the file parameter -f, and there's where I'm specifying the virtual machine image I'm going to work with. So this is the admin server one, and I'm doing a recursive put, and that's where I'm taking the domain information that I created, my physical domain. This is my master, if you will, and I'm putting that into the virtual machine image at /application/domains JRVE domain. That's going to be my domain directory, and of course that's what I specified in the JRVE configuration, so that when we boot up into WebLogic server, that's where it's going to look to find its domain information. So we're doing that for each of the 3 servers. There's the admin server, here's the managed server 1, managed server 2. And now we're going to run the image tool with the reconfigure command, and we're doing set config. So we're setting the JRVE configuration, and remember I've got a slightly different file for each of the 3 servers. So once all those 3 have run, I can just type return, then I'm set up. I've now created my virtual machine images, all 3 of them. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to compress them with the tar command, and I'm going to copy those up to the OVM server. What I do is I create a directory in the /ovs/seedpool directory on the OVM server. So I have a directory named the same as the virtual machines are going to be here, and then I simply copy that compressed image up and unzip it. Once I've done that, I can import those as OVM virtual machine templates, and we'll look at that in the next recording.